Broncos country, what is poppin', man? It's your boy Mark here with Marky Sports. We are going to go through the top 5 positional battles as we head into training camp, which is about a month away. I know it sounds like it's a long time, but we already know. Time's going to go by quickly, man. And I'm going to talk about, I'm excited for a lot of different things with training camp, but specifically these positional battles. We're going to go through all 5. We're going to talk about what they are, which players are in the mix to win jobs and win opportunities at playing time, why it's important, and we're ultimately going to talk about my predictions as to what I think, and I'd love to know what you guys think for each one below in the comments. So like and subscribe if you're not already, guys. If you love Denver sports, specifically the Denver Broncos, you're going to love the channel, man. Join the community. Let's have some fun. So let's get right into it, man, without wasting any time. At number 5 in my top 5 training camp battles, it's going to be a weird one for some of y'all, but this is going to be return man number 2, opposite of Marvin Mims. Now, here's why this is extremely important, in my opinion. When you talk about the new dynamic kickoff rules that they implemented again for this year, it's gonna promote a lot more opportunities for Marvin Mims and whoever else is back there on kick returns to be able to have an opportunity at a return, right? What they did with the dynamic kickoff rules, as you guys know, last year, is if the ball was kicked out of the back of the end zone, the offense would get it at the 30 when it was previously the 25. Well, they didn't really get as much returns or, opportunities as the league wanted. So they changed it now to make it, if you kick it out of the back of the end zone, you get the ball at the 35-yard line, right? And I know it seems like 5 yards, but it's actually really significant because when you break it down and you do the math, it's actually about one less first down that an offense needs to get to be able to be in field goal range, to get an opportunity to score points, which is obviously extremely important. And so I think by doing that, you are going to start to see a lot more returns, a lot more opportunities for guys to return kicks specifically. And now the Broncos have a massive weapon in Marvin Mims, not just on offense, but specifically on special teams, where he's a Pro Bowler and he's really cut his teeth. One of the most dynamic return men in all of football. So it's going to bode really well. But there is 2 guys that are back there. And what teams are probably going to try to do is avoid kicking it to Marvin Mims and kick it to somebody else next to Marvin. Now, in full transparency, I don't even know who was back there last year. I think it might have been Vele that was back there with Marvin Mims. I probably should have went back and looked, to be honest with you. But it's interesting because Darren Rizzi had talked about this specifically. We know he's the new special teams coordinator. He's one of the best in the NFL. And he talked about how it's going to be really important, man, because now the teams are going to be wanting to avoid giving the offense the ball at the 35, but they also want to avoid kicking it to Marvin Mims. So they're going to kick it to somebody else. So he had said that's going to be a really important battle. It's going to open up a lot of opportunities for guys that might not make the 53 to potentially be able to make it because of their ability to be dynamic returning the football. So he gave a little bit of a hint, dropped a little tea leaf. He said, we want somebody with a little bit of maybe a different body type or a different positional group. And he mentioned specifically the running backs. So when you break that down, you got to think Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Bidet, Blake Watson, Audric Estime are all options to be back there. Now, what Audric Estime would bring is a much more physical presence back there. So somebody that can still, get yards. Obviously, having experience as a running back will help him with the vision and being able to put his foot in the dirt and go. Not necessarily the kind of speed that you love from a return man, but he's still someone that can impose his will and be able to churn out yards if you wanted a different style. Tyler Bidet, not sure if he has a lot of experience, but he'd be somebody that could make sense. Blake Watson, Jaleel McLaughlin as well. Guys that I've never seen them return kicks, but they seem like they could be pretty good at it, and they'd have the speed to be able to take it to the house should there be a crease that opens up. Now, obviously, other wide receivers like Devon Vele, somebody that could make sense, right? He's a bigger wide receiver, bigger body, still has the speed. Troy Franklin could make a whole bunch of sense back there. Not sure, again, if he has experience, but he could do it. And you could also look at some of the undrafted guys, some of the bottom of the roster players that could be on these teams as well, that could be back there. So I'd love to know what you guys think. I ultimately believe it's probably going to be somebody like a Tyler Bidet, because I think Sean Payton's got a severe love for him. Or even a Devon Vele. I'll say this. I think Audric Estime does make this team. I do think he's the running back 3 when it comes to, so a little bit of a teaser about what we're going to be talking about moving forward. But If Audric Estime makes a team and Tyler Bidet doesn't, then, and what I mean by team, I mean the active 53-man roster, then I think I like Devon Vele or Troy Franklin's chances to go out there and make plays as a return man. So, like I said, is it going to be something I'm paying 100% of my attention to? No, but there's going to be a play or two this year where I think this position battle really comes into play. And so I'm super excited to see that. Now, let's get on to number 4. Oh, what the hell? There you go. Number 4 is the cornerback position. Now, you would think this is going to be a little bit higher, but I think for me, it boils down to not so much how the cornerback room is going to look. I mean, I think your top 3 starting guys. It's going to be PS2, Patrick Surtain II, obviously, Riley Moss, and Jahdae Barron, this year's number 20 overall pick. But how they utilize them, right? Where is Jahdae Barron playing? Is he going to be mainly the slot? Is he going to be battling fully with Riley Moss as the cornerback 2 on the outside? And they're going to maybe use Riley Moss as more of a depth corner or someone that maybe he can flip and play on the inside, right? So does Jahdae Barron take the role of Jaquan McMillan? Does he take the role of Riley Moss? How does that work? And how is everything else gonna come into play? I think it's obviously extremely important, right? Because cornerback is in a very important position, especially when you're a defense that's established like we have, that has some of the best pass rushers. We led the league in sacks last year. The secondary is going to be huge. And we saw firsthand what a lack of depth at that position can have and the kind of consequences that it can have once Riley Moss went down and missed 4 weeks towards the end of the season. And then even when he came back, he wasn't really fully himself. So Jahdae Barron brings a bunch of versatility. He brings a lot of kind of a Swiss Army knife type of skill set to this positional room. And the reason it's helpful is because now guys like Jaquan McMillan, who have been starters on this defense for the last couple of years, are now going to be bench guys that you can always rely upon to start should they need to be able to come in, and you can kind of move Jahdae Barron around and play him where you need to play him. Obviously, from a game planning standpoint, I broke this down in a previous video about Jahdae Barron, what he can do. So check that out as well. But I'm excited to see this, man, because I think it's gonna tell a lot about how the Broncos feel about Jaquan McMillan. It's gonna talk about how they feel about Riley Moss as well, potentially. And I just can't wait to see how it all ultimately shakes out. If you're asking me, man, I think Riley's still going to be the main cornerback 2 on the outside. I think he showed so many positive things last year, and he's only going to be getting better. And I think they're going to use Jahdae Barron as a wherever you need him on the field type of a player, whether it's in the box as like a hybrid box linebacker, in the slot most of the time where he's going to be playing, covering the slot receivers and tight ends, and making his impact felt in the backfield in the run game and also on some blitzes. So that's what I think it's ultimately going to shake out for this battle. But curious to your thoughts as to if you have any different thoughts about it. Getting back to number 3 now, man, is going to be the running back room. Now, this originally was going to be higher on the list, but once we brought in J.K. Dobbins, it brought a little bit of clarity. We know it's going to be the R.J. Harvey and the J.K. Dobbins show, barring any injuries, right? And I like that 1-2 punch. I'm a big fan of it. I also am, I might be the minority in Broncos country that says this, but I kind of hope we just, deactivate JK for a big part of the beginning part of the year, because the goal with him is to help us and to be a beast for the team later on in the season, right? We don't want him to get the wear and tear on his body early, and then he comes in and he ends up missing the more important, more crucial part of the year. But that's not typically how these things work. So I'm totally fine with it. But behind those two guys, man, is it a big year for Audric Estime to show that he can take the steps necessary to make this team. Because you got Jaleel McLaughlin, who the coaching staff loves, who works his ass off. He's one of the favorites among his teammates. He's, you kind of know what you can do with him. So even though I would prefer for it to be Estime, Jaleel's going to be there. He's going to make it very difficult. Blake Watson is someone that I love. I really hope to get the opportunity to see him more. Maybe not so much in the regular season, but at least in the preseason and the offseason. because that would mean that there's a lot of injuries if you see him. But I'm intrigued by his skill set. I'm intrigued by what he can do in the pass game. Being a former receiver at Memphis, showing how dynamic he could be catching the football. It meshes really well with what Sean Payton wants to do. No doubt about that. So very excited to see that. And then obviously you got Tyler Bidet. Tyler Bidet doesn't go away. He's been on the practice squad for a few years. He was basically the starting running back last year. And then in his first game being the starter versus the Jets in week 4, I believe it was, he breaks his back and misses the rest of the year up until the wild card playoff game against Buffalo, which we all know what he did. Activated him, benched and deactivated Estime. So a lot of that could be playing a role. But Bidet is someone that Sean Payton really loves. He continuously brings them up by name, even when they're not specifically asking about him. And that is something that's important. He was brought up in a post one of the pressers that they had after the mini camps when they were talking about running backs and pass protection, right? He did say a lot about Estime as well, but Tyler Bidet is not somebody that's gonna be taken lightly. So it's gonna be a hell of a battle to see those guys. I still do believe it's probably Audric Estime's job to lose at this point as the depth, kind of the last running back, for several reasons. Firstly, because he was a 5th-round draft pick. He's still a very young player. I think that they understand that there's still a lot of untapped potential, but also his body type is unique, right? You don't want to have a situation where, like, let's say J.K. Dobbins goes down and now you've got R.J. Harvey and Jaleel, and you're missing maybe a little bit more of a physical aspect to the run game. And, the short yardage and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like the other guys outside of Blake Watson are significantly better than one another when it comes to catching the football. So it's going to be interesting there. But we're going to have to see, Audric Estime is going to have to show that he made strides, and he's obviously going to have to show that he, can hold on to the football and not fumble. But I ultimately believe it's going to be that. Another reason I think Audric Estime is going to be the third guy on the team is because, so another thing with Estime too, and what makes him one of the favorites is obviously you're not going to be able to stash somebody like him on the practice squad, right? You're not going to be able to, there's going to be another team out there that's going to be more likely to sign him on the 53, or he might just be really upset and he doesn't even want to sign back onto your practice squad. Tyler Bidet, you have a pretty good shot of being able to get him back on the practice squad. I think he realizes and he trusts Sean Payton. He's got a little bit of a relationship with him. Jaleel McLaughlin is another guy that you could always get on the practice squad. Is another team going to take him potentially? Might be a little bit more difficult. Does he want to come back on our practice squad? Maybe he loves it here, and he feels like he'll still get his opportunities. And then obviously same with Blake Watson. They had to do that last year. I can see them, potentially looking to do that again. So, or like last year, they couldn't get him on the practice squad because there was a lot of teams going after him. But now with a new crop of rookies that came in and teams go through another offseason, it might be easier to sneak him back onto the practice squad. Estime, not so much. So from just a roster gymnastics standpoint, it would make sense. So that's ultimately what I think is going to happen there. Getting into number 2, and one that I'm super excited to see, man. I love it. We've made a lot of videos. We've talked a lot about it here in Broncos country. And that's going to be the inside linebacker position. Who is going to be the guy that starts opposite of Dre Greenlaw, man? That's the $1 million question. There's obviously a lot of different options. There's going to be a lot of guys that, are going to make it interesting. Going through them, you got Alex Singleton, the veteran, the guy that's been on this team for several years. He's been one of the vocal leaders, one of the leaders overall, plays with his hair on fire. Some fans love him. The other fans hate him. There's really no in between, but really good player, somebody that's very good in the run. He's very susceptible in the pass game. There's no doubt about that. Obviously coming off the ACL injury and the contract situation in terms of the cap savings that we could save, I think it puts it behind the A-ball a little bit. Then you got Drew Sanders. We've been waiting in Broncos country for a long time for Drew Sanders to take that leap. And he's had, a lot of unfortunate events, right? We moved up in the 3rd round to get him. So that's kind of a big positive for him. But he had a little bit of an identity crisis. Is he going to be an edge rusher, which he started his career off? Is he going to be a inside linebacker? Is he a hybrid? And then he had he had injuries in his rookie season, a little bit of an identity crisis, and then he tears his Achilles last year in May around this time, or maybe it was in May. So during the off season, and misses most of last year before getting activated like later on in the season. This year, knock on wood, it looks like he's finally entering the offseason healthy. You know exactly what position he's going to play, which is going to be off-ball inside linebacker. And, you know, he's got all the tools, man. I mean, you're talking about the size, the length, the explosiveness. There's obviously a lot that Sean Payton and the coaching staff like about him. And as Bronco fans, I think we should be rooting for him to be the guy, because then you're going to be able to really reap the rewards of your investment that you invested in him with a third-round pick, and, you know, feel like it's your guy. But, you know, they obviously really like him, not just because of the fact that they traded up to get him, but also, you know, they activated him way sooner than he probably should have been to play special teams and to play in specific roles. And so he's probably going to be the favorite. Then you got a lot of really interesting guys after that, right? You've got undrafted free agent from last year, Lavelle Bailey. You've got Justin Sternad, who's a special teams ace for most of his career, gets his opportunity to start last year and filled in admirably, right? Is he a starter? No, but he's somebody a veteran that played a lot better than I think most of us expected. And you know that he can come in if needed to start. So he's going to be one of the options. You got JD Brown or JB Brown. JD or J? I think JB Brown. Shout out to David Talks Broncos. He just made a video about him, so go check that out too. Undrafted kid out of Kansas that we had brought in as a UDFA this year. Gave him a lot of money, big signing bonus money. He's kind of similar to Drew Sanders in a sense that, like, he played multiple positions. He was an edge rusher. He played on the D line in college. He was an off-ball linebacker, undersized guy, but kind of plays with his hair on fire a little bit. So he'll be an interesting, player to kind of keep tabs on going into the offseason as well. So, who is it going to be? We're going to have to really just kind of wait it out and see. But I ultimately think it's going to be Drew Sanders that is going to be the linebacker opposite. Oh, and then you also got Kareem Reed as well. Made a video about him. Another undrafted guy that we got out of Utah. He's somebody that is going to go in there and compete. And then Jordan Turner, another UDFA. So those UDFA guys, they're going to be interesting. I really think that their chance of being the starter is very, very slim. But it's still noteworthy to keep tabs on them. If they end up making the team, are they going to be a future starter? What are they showing? Lavelle Bailey showed a lot last year in the preseason and the offseason. So it's going to have to see. But I ultimately believe the Broncos move on from Alex Singleton, whether it be via trade or just cutting him to save the money. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if some of these younger guys really show a lot of promise. Also, having Justin Sternad is a big bonus because you've got a veteran guy that can fill in as needed, which really makes the need for Alex Singleton irrelevant. But if Alex Singleton looks great after his injury and Drew Sanders just does not seem like he's figuring it out at the inside linebacker position, Alex Singleton is the clear, easy starter there too. Regardless, I can't wait to watch it, man. I think it's probably the only question mark we have on defense in a sense of, if you want to call it a hole, that's what it is. Otherwise, our defense is absolutely loaded top to bottom. So inside linebacker is number 2. And for the number 1 biggest camp battle that I'm looking for at training camp, I think this is a pretty obvious one, is going to be the wide receiver room as a whole. How is it going to shake out? Man, is it a confusing but intriguing and a very exciting wide receiver room, right? Because you've got your veteran, you've got your proven Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver in Cortland Sutton, who's going to be your wide receiver 1, right? Now, to add a layer to it, he's looking at getting a contract extension. We might have news. I think we're going to have news about that before training camp. I think it's something that's going to get done. Outside of him, it's a whole bunch of question marks, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not worried about it this year like I was last year. Because Bo Nix is naturally going to be better going into year 2. So he's going to make the guys around him better going into year 2. And then you've got, very promising players. Devon Vele showed a lot of really, really good stuff in his rookie season. Regardless if he was a 7th rounder or a 2nd rounder, he showed a lot. He showed that he could be a really solid player. Troy Franklin started to really figure it out. He was a little bit of a late bloomer, but he figured it out. He showed a little bit of that potential, right? Obviously in the playoff game as well with the long touchdown. And then you add Pat Bryant, who you took in the 3rd round. I am absolutely in love with Pat Bryant as a prospect. I think he's going to be a phenomenal fit. I think he's going to play a lot as a rookie. I think he's going to add a lot of juice to this running back room, to this wide receiver room. Sorry, and yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to see how it shakes out, right? And then you got obviously Marvin Mims. We know what Marvin Mims can do. We know how explosive he is. He gets better every single year as an offensive player, as a wide receiver. Does he just absolutely pop and show that he could be a full-time wide receiver as well? And, you know, you got the A.T. Perry debate. We're not going to get into it a lot. It's kind of a polarizing topic, but he's now what would be considered a veteran. He's played in 4 games in his career. Big body receiver. Showed a lot in the limited opportunities that he's gotten in New Orleans. There was a lot of positive reports about him, so he's going to come in and compete once he gets healthy. You got Trent Sherfield, who you know is going to make this team because of his ability to play special teams. I don't think he's going to be much of a contributor on offense, but him being on the team is going to limit the amount of spaces available. And then Kyrie White and Jerwan Newton and Joaquin Davis and Courtney Jackson, you know, to name, I think that's 4 guys that are UDFAs that we brought in. And then Michael Bandy, who's kind of always a practice squad guy on this team as well. So my whole thing is, okay, who's going to be starting opposite of Sutton? Is going to be tough because of the way that it could ultimately be that the technical wide receiver number 2 is Pat Bryant, but you know, the guy that plays the second most percentage of the snaps is Devon Vele. It's going to be super fun. I cannot wait to watch it. I can't wait to see these guys go out there and compete against the best secondary in camp every single day. I think that it's just going to make them so much better. And it's really going to show as clear as possible, all right, who's going to be the guy for this job. If you're asking me, I personally believe you're going to have Cortland Sutton, and you're going to have Pat Bryant, and you're going to have Devon Vele be your 3 main guys that are getting a majority of the reps. Pat Bryant might start getting them more as the season progresses, but when it's all said and done, I just think he's way too good. He's solid. He's a mature player. He's a mature route runner. Very good talent. Fits the mold of exactly what Sean Payton is looking for. So I think those are going to be the 3 guys that get a majority of the snaps, with obviously Marvin Mims getting a ton of work as your gadget player, right? He's still going to play receiver, but he's going to take some snaps out of the backfield. He's going to be the bubble screen guy. He's someone that you want to get the football in his hands in space. And then I think Troy Franklin's going to be your deep ball specialist to start, right? The guy that can stretch the field as much as possible. So that's ultimately what I think the wide receiver room is going to be made up of. I think it's going to be Sutton, Vele, Pat Bryant, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Trent Sherfield. I think those are going to be the 6, with everybody else probably being a practice squad candidate. But who wins what and who's utilized how is going to be the interesting part that I'm looking forward to the most in camp. Guys, I appreciate y'all tuning in, man. I would love to know your thoughts and your comments below on all of the positional battles going into training camp. What are your favorites, and who do you think is ultimately going to come out on top? Let me know down below in the comments. Until the next time, y'all have a wonderful day, man. Go Broncos.